Hey guys, and welcome to Pheas Airsoft, where today I'm going to do a disassembly and internal review of this M904H by EAGLE. So a quick point on safety: if you are going to do unboxings, disassemblies, even shooting videos and things like that, please make sure you take proper safety precautions, eye protection, making sure other people have got theirs on, that kind of thing. And also a disclaimer: any of the things that you see in this video cannot, do not, and will not apply to real steel counterparts to these. These are classed as toy guns, and that's all these videos are about. Hey guys, and welcome back. If you do enjoy this content today, please do like and subscribe, because you're going to be really helping me out, especially the like button, because that helps me get seen by the YouTube algorithms. I have enabled memberships, join button just down here. It is just 99p a month, open to all countries. Apple devices might have issues about joining, just because I think there's some sort of issue around that, but it's 99p a month. I will be massively appreciative if you did join, but totally fine if not. And if you haven't done so already, please do come and join my Discord. We have got a great community of people on there, answering questions, chatting about all sorts of stuff, and it'd be lovely to have you guys join us. So hopefully you've been following my DMR series and you've come to see how do we disassemble and reassemble this, and what do those internals look like now that we've sort of been DMRing it. Now I've put probably about 300, maybe 400 rounds through this as a DMR. It's got a decent amount of wear. I would probably say at 400 rounds, probably more than a typical day's wear and tear for a DMR. Probably a lot more, actually. So we're going to get into the disassembly now. The suppressor itself is just a negative thread and comes straight out, and it is a metal one, and it looks to be foam filled as well, maybe. Surprisingly easily came off. It is foam filled as well. So the standard barrel, which we've got the graded barrel in there, would have sort of come only part way up here. So it would have offered some reduction in sort of noise levels. Not an awful lot, but it is what it is. In terms of, where did I put that Allen key? In terms of the front sights then, I'm pretty sure, no, I am absolutely wrong. They include an Allen key in the box. Selectors, doesn't even fit the selectors. I thought it might be for, it's not for anything that I can see on here. I thought it might actually be for the sights. It's not. So this Allen key, I don't know what you're for. I don't know actually what you're for. In terms of the rail unit then, we'll do this sight post. The sights, you're just going to need maybe a number 3. Yep, a number 3 hex or Allen key head. Undo the bolt, and you'll have to remove the bolt, and then it'll slide off. Just make sure that you catch the little nut in there, because that will obviously drop out, and that needs to be in there. Same for the rear one as well, exactly the same system. Now with the rail unit, I will put a link down below to the video I've done of removing this, where all you do is you just adjust this tiny little nut here, and these two bits sort of close up. The nut itself, this little assembly, drops out, and then the whole rail unit just slides off forward, and it gives you access to all the outer barrel. It does look like it's a fairly easy job in there to get like the outer barrel off and everything, but typically people don't mess with these anyway. So we're not on this occasion, we're just going to go straight for the rest of the internals. So we've got the number 3 hex head there. I do apologise, I am clumsy anyway, but trying to do this literally leaning over a table is more difficult as well. It makes it more clumsy. So I've just pushed that pin out. Now you can see already it's jumped forward, and that's the spring on the barrel and the hop. So I'm just going to lift the bolt release, sort of sticks against this piece of plastic here. So you just lift it up literally a mil or so, and the whole assembly comes apart. And we'll get in. There's our barrel and our hop. We've obviously had a look at that as well. We're happy with those. Those are still immaculately clean. I'll put those back in there. Obviously all of the previous videos are linked down below as well if you do want to see the build up to this. So getting the stock off then, we're just going to extend it out to the full extent, pull down on the little lugs and release the stock. And it's pretty much just an AR sort of gun in here. I'm impressed with that bit of radiusing going off there just to stop any sort of damage happening from the cylinders smacking against the front of the gearbox. I'm going to be honest, the more I see these, the more I look at them. Double Eagle have impressed me no end with this. So I've got my long screwdriver. There goes the bolt release. Just pull the cable out to the side there. Wait a minute. Oh, that's fine. It's an X head, not a Phillips head. So I'll get my extension bar in for this. Pretty sure it's a bigger bolt as well, so let's have a look. It is a number 4 X hex head bolt. That's coming out, sorted. So I'm going to tip that over. I'm going to shake it a little bit, and that releases the screw. There comes the retainer. Now this is important. When the screw goes back in, you'll notice there's one pushed out, one in. The screw goes in like that, and it's important it goes in like that, otherwise it may not have the reach if you mount it the other way to screw back in. So I'm just going to carefully pull the wiring out. So some of you will have noticed there is sort of 2 wires coming out the red terminal there, and that's because one of them will be feeding the MOSFET, one will feed directly to the motor in terms of controlling it to turn on and off. Now, here's where it's different to the other 904 that we've had before. So we've got this adapter on the back here, which is actually pretty damn snazzy. It is just polymer, but it is basically just an adapter for the back there that gives you an AR style buffer tube attachment to put a traditional Airsoft buffer tube on there, as well as letting the wiring through and space for it to sit in as well down the buffer tube. So that allows the attachment of any sort of traditional Airsoft AR style stock for whatever you want. Just remember, if you're going to put like an M16, make sure that the screw that comes in it is a little bit longer than normal, than the one that I got, because it just wasn't quite long enough, needed about an extra inch. So next thing I'm going to do then is we're going to take the pistol grip off, removing these two at the bottom. So for this, I've got a number 2 sized hex head, or Allen key head. Make sure you keep the screws together so you know what is what and where it's come from. Lift that up. That's quite nice. Brought in my little flat head just to help me pull the wires up and off the motor terminals, that's one. Now, you could, if you wanted, obviously lower the trigger sensitivity, so it's a shorter trigger pull on this. I didn't, because I like a little bit longer trigger pull, but you also could put a higher torque motor in this, because the higher torque with the sort of the stronger spring needed for this will get you that little bit snappier trigger pull. That the gearbox will complete its cycle quicker than the currently included motor. Not that I felt there was anything wrong with the included one at all. It run lovely. It's just, you know, if you want something a little bit better. So we've undone the 2 screws that are down there. So the screws are in the traditional top left and bottom right. And I'm just going to feed those up now. If you notice, the black wire came up the front and the red wire came up out of the back. So there you go. They both came up like that and then fed over onto their respective terminals, which is a usual thing that we see with MOSFETs anyway. And then I'm going to remove this rear body pin, might need. Yes. So what I've done there is I'm trying to undo the screw, but it's just, as you can see, I don't know if you can see that, but that's spinning this bit here. So I'm just going to have to get something to just hold that, nip it down with. Right. After much expletives and a bit of annoyance, we're getting there now. So I'll show you what I've caused on the other side. So I'll get this screw out. To be fair, this is the only bad thing I think I've found so far with this gun, is this one screw. So I'll flip it over. As you can see there, I've really had to have at it with the sort of needle nose just to get enough purchase. But as soon as I got the purchase on it, absolutely fine, came out straight away. So the next thing then, I'm going to push out the trigger pin. So what I did was just use my little flat head to push it out, and on this occasion I've pushed from the left out to the right hand side, and there are the little sort of teeth on that pin. Pull that out. We've just got the mag release to remove. Hopefully that's too big. It looks like an EMA Torx. So we're going precision set here. We're going to start with the old favourite, a Torx 6, because that's usually what works on this sort of thing. Nope. So that one needed a Torx 7. To get that out, and there it is. There's a spring. So the gearbox now, I bet the selectors are keeping it in. I don't like it when they do this. Okay, let's just make sure. Right, okay. So we're going to get the selector out. So we've got a number 2 hex head. Now I'm going to be very careful. Okay, it's not a ball bearing, that's a good thing. So it's a little tiny spring with a little plastic notch on the end, and that, flip that over, that just sits in this hole there. There we go. Keep that one side, take off the other. Again, number 2. There's no spring bit under that. The selector itself is different though, shape. So on this one, it's got a shape sticking out that sort of matches in with the hole in the side. On this side, on the right hand side, it's got sort of an indentation in the selector for the gear to fit in. So what I'm going to do is very carefully lift this up and out now, because I don't want to lose either of those cogs. Right, I've kept that nicely. So this left hand side then of the receiver, you can see there, you've got the cog on like a cam that goes through to the other side. I'm holding the gear on the other side. You've got a cog that should sit like that, so that's the safe position at the minute. And then the other side, that is the safe position that it needs to be in to connect through. So I'm just going to literally lift that off. Do the same to the other side, that might not come out till this one comes out. So these should just lift up and separate. So that took a little bit of effort. I just had to work a screwdriver under one of the gears and then it's popped off. So that just comes through. Now the little rod is shaped on one end to match, as you can see. Hopefully you can see there on that cog. There's a shape like a D shape to it, and the sort of pronounced bit needs to go underneath. It needs to sit in there, so it should be sort of flat on top. If you've got it that way up, you've got it the wrong way around. Put those out of the way. That will probably come out at some point whilst we're messing with this. See if I can get it out now. No, it's stuck in there, that's fine. So we're now down to the gearbox. Again, it looks pretty well built. You've got the sort of like reinforcements around the front there. Traditionally, this is where version 2 gearboxes would break. You know, the front of the gearbox would break off. My wife used to have a TM G3 SAS, and that did the same, just from persistent use, really. It's just what happened. So obviously, a lot of gearboxes now are reinforced around there. Can still happen, though, where this front bit can come off. Version 3 gearboxes, the ones that you typically get in like your AKs and stuff like that, are much more solid and better built. And that tends to not happen on those. So we're going to switch to what I think is a Tox 10. It is a Tox 10. Make sure when you're taking these screws out of the gearbox, you keep them all in the right order, just in case there's any difference. Just thought as well, we've not taken out the quick change springs, so I should be able to just push in with my thumb. I can. And out it comes. You might need a screwdriver. It's about to ping out, I believe. There we go. There it goes. Just needed a little bit of work out. So that's quite a nice, a nicely cut spring guide. There's my spring. Now the back bit with the tighter coils, that is what went on the spring guide. So make sure it goes in the same way. Put that out of the way. So now when I open this up, it's under no compression now. So things are going to be much easier. So now done the screws. So we can split this up and see what happens. So it's quite firmly together, so I'm just going to pry it apart. There we go. Okay, so I'm not going to lie. Wow, okay. That's a bit almost looks like a Titan sort of design here. Right, so let's have a look. Gear set fairly standard looking. Doesn't look to be any real signs of wear or tear on there at all. Anti-reversal latch, absolutely fine. It looks to be well shimmed, which is brilliant. It looks to be sort of well greased as well, which again is brilliant. It's really nice. Does that just lift up? That literally lifts up like a Titan. I'm not gonna lie, this is just outstanding. So you've got optical cutoff, you've got optical trigger sensitivity, optical detection of your firing mode. It basically looks like a Titan to me, just sort of scaled back. Let's just pull that round. You've got, let's have a look at that piston. The piston, a little bit of grease on there. Absolutely no real sign of, there's no sign of damage at all, just a little sort of bit of grease on there. Trying to be careful not to move the shims. Let's have a look at the air compression in there then. So finger over the end, I'm just going to push that. Wow. Okay. Excellent air compression as well. Let's try it with the air nozzle. I'll do it sort of out. I'll do it in. Now, even with that, pretty damn good air seal. You know, I can still get it in, which there'll be a little bit of air leak around the nozzle, sort of being on this cylinder head rod. But I'm not gonna lie, that's genuinely impressive. So let's just lift the trigger up and out. And the sector gear, that's a pretty nice looking chip. So there's the top side of it. Careful not to get anything on it. That Double Eagle, colour me impressed. That is a fantastic piece of kit. I am really, really impressed with it. So then, let's start with the reassembly, the joys. Here we go. So that's back in place. The trigger then, I'm going to put the trigger spring underneath there, and I'm just going to work that into place. There we go. I was going to say that might spring out a lot, but it's so far so good. Let's drop the sector gear back in. It is very well shimmed, I'll be honest. It's they've made, it might not be perfect, but they've made a damn good effort at it, and that's, you know, the main thing. So put the air nozzle in. So the air nozzle should sit in the tappet plate like that. Bring it back on camera. Sorry, I'm leaning over. Just show you. Oops. Just make sure that we didn't miss anything before, if I weren't high enough forward. So there we've got the chip, the main chip, and the top side, which flips over and goes like that. That is built very similar, very, very similar to a Titan. It's funny because I can't even remember the looking at the chip in the other 904 that I had. I couldn't even tell you if it was the same. So I'm just going to push that down, wind that back a little bit. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to hook this on. So the air nozzle sits in the tappet plate, and then basically this little spring goes on the hook. I'm going to hook it onto the front post here. So I've got that back in place. I'm just going to push that spring as far down on this post as it'll go, making sure that that is moving, which it is. It's that sat in its little, there we go, sat in its track, like that. Made sure that the piston is sat on its track here, so it's going to move up and down nicely. This is looking good. Next thing, I'm going to bring in the anti-reversal latch and the other gear. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to make sure that the spring is on properly on the anti-reversal latch, like that. And I'm going to pull it over to the side over here, and I'm going to just push down really hard with my thumb whilst I bring in this gear. Careful not to move any of those shims. There we go. And I'm just going to wound it on a little bit, just so that the sector gear sort of delayer is just coming round towards the tappet plate. And at that point now, I can put the top side of the shell on, making sure that the wires stay in their track as well. Don't want to nip anything. And then this just beautifully goes together. Double Eagle, like literally, you have impressed me no end. The build quality of this is absolutely phenomenal. And the price of them is just like, you know, why are they only charging so little? They are absolutely phenomenal. So I'm just going to screw this all back together now. A good thing at this point before you put all the screws in is just check that the tappet plate is moving and that the trigger's moving. And you might even want to just check, putting your screwdriver up, can you still move the gears? Obviously mine's starting to pull the tappet plate, so I know everything's free moving and everything's sort of lined up properly. There should be no unwinding in the gearbox, so sort of the gears shouldn't be able to unwind, which lets you know that the anti-reversal latch is in the right place. So the gearbox is back together now, happy with that. The spring can go back in then, so I've made sure that the tight coils are on the spring guide, and it's just going to slide in. Needs a little bit of working in. Might need a screwdriver just to help you. There we go. So it took a little bit of work, but I got it in there, and it's just a quarter turn round. So once it goes in, I'll show you again. So once it's in, the sort of things at the top there and the bottom, it's just a quarter turn, and then it locks back, and that's it. The gearbox is fully made. So we're just going to move that selector around. There we go. So I'm just getting it back to, there we go, it's safe position, ready to put the little cam on. So I'm going to drop that in place. That's in its safe position. I've got my fingers retaining it on the underside. So again, remember that the deeper side needs to drop down. The gear's shaped as well, so it's got to be in the right position, which it is. And then this one sits like that, and it sits, this gear sits in this little recess here. So I'm just going to sit it like that. I'm just going to check that that's the right orientation, which it is. Right, so now I'm going to very delicately keep this all together in my hands whilst I drop this all back in here. This is not pleasant, this bit to do. You don't get me wrong, I do like an ambidextrous selector, but that's a pain in the backside. There we go. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put the main selector on first, making sure that that little sort of clicker pin doesn't drop out, because that bit on the spring is what makes it sort of click when it's in position. I'm going to just tighten that down briefly. There we go. So I've got that initially tightened down. Apologise if I keep missing anything off, I'm having to lean over my desk to work. There we go. So put it in place, it's in the right orientation, sort of checked obviously back against the early bit of the video. So that's in the right position there. I'm going to bring in the other selector. There's no sort of retaining clicker here. So again, just drop that in. Tighten it down using our number 2. And then we've got perfectly linked. Boom, perfect. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to put the trigger pin back in. So teeth are on this right hand side. And I'm just going to tap it back in. There we go, nice and flush, which is how we want it. I'm going to put the troublesome body pin back in, the one that we had to get with the snips. Now, I might, if I was going to keep this, I'd probably look to replace this body pin with one that's got sort of like a thread in both sides, just to make my life easier. So that was back to a number 3 screw bit, hex bit. Tighten that in. It's as tight as I can make it without getting my tools on it. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to put the mag release in, drop the spring on, drop the button on, lining up the screw with its hole. I'm going to bring in the T7 and start tightening it down, and then I can put the full screwdriver on it. Now I'm just going to make sure that the button goes down onto the proper bit, because it doesn't look like it's there we go. Make sure when you're putting a screw in that you always twist it like as though you're going to trying to loosen it off first until it clicks, till it sits on those sort of threads properly, otherwise you can ruin the threads of your gun. Next we're going to do the pistol grip then. So bring that back in, the screws are fortunately still in there. 1 and 2, making sure the black is up the front, the red is up the back on this particular model because of the MOSFET. Get my long screwdriver in there. And there we go. And then we can bring the motor in. Red terminal to the back, black to the front. And I'm going to click that on there. Boom. That one on there. Plenty of room in there as well. He says. Getting the cable down the sides. We can then bring in the motor plate. But I've done that wrong. Yeah, forgot to run the cable around the back. Silly Pheas. Right, so what I've correctly done now, see, even I make mistakes. So the black wire comes around the edge here and then up this back bit for the motor to then drop in. The red terminal goes on. There we go. Black terminal comes around and across. A little bit fiddly, but it does and will go on. There we go. So I've got them both on now. So now I'm gonna put that in, see how easy that dropped in. Shorter one to the front, because there is two different lengths here. So the shorter one goes to the front. Using my, I bet it's number 2. Just gonna tighten that one off by hand first. Longer one at the back. Tighten that down. Tighten the front one down. There we go. Motor's in there now. Don't forget to put our, it's actually metal, I didn't know that, our metal bolt release in there. We'll bring the stock assembly stuff back in now. So just feed the wires through there. And I've done it the wrong way, seriously, Pheas, come on. In my defence, it's pretty late at night. It's not really. It's only about 9 o'clock at night. It is 9 o'clock at night, so I'm on the ball. So, stock tube back in place then. So now that's back in place. We'll slide that down and onto there. Just going to hold it up like that, pull the wire into the side, and I'm just going to drop this like that. So the cutaway bit needs to sort of sit on top of the wiring. What I'm going to do is I've lifted the stock tube back up. Make sure the screw doesn't get tangled. Now I wonder if I can... The screw needs to not be tangled around the wires, because otherwise it's going to end up crimping something potentially, or shortening the amount of wire off. Now I can't do it that way, so I'm going to have to... Right, so we're going to have to put the stock tube on, pull that to the side, then we're going to have to drop this down, and what I'm going to do is keep it... There we go. I kept it lent that way so that the screw sort of stayed away from the wires. There we go. I'm just going to lift it up. Just let the screw drop through, and I'm just going to feed it into that hole there. So I can do that. There we go. And then it's in the right position then to screw it back in. So I'm going to bring my extension bar back in. Again, it's a hex 4 or Allen key size 4 head. Waiting for that click because I've turned it backwards. The plate's in the right orientation. Tighten down. Take our bits out. We'll leave the stock off for 2 minutes. We'll put the bolt release back in again. We'll bring in the upper which got stuck on the bolt release. There we go. Excuse me. Manoeuvre that into position, push that in, screw down the front body pin, bring in the suppressor, again negative third, obviously the suppressor does stick out a touch, could do with a barrel extension. And then last but not least, got our battery, got our converter adapter, plug it in, got the buzz that it's working, safe, semi, and then auto is still on single shot from it being a DMR. And that is it. We have fully stripped down, checked the internals and rebuilt this. I am super impressed at the sheer quality of this thing, and the price of it as well is just amazing. You know, it's if you're not rushing out to get one of these as your next gun, maybe you really need to think about doing so, because they are just so good. I literally cannot sing their praises enough. It's become my new favourite budget option, I think, now, because of the sheer quality of them and the amount of features you get. You know, we've spent less than £200, and I've built a DMR that shoots amazing. There's still room for improvement, don't get me wrong, but shoots amazing for less than £200. You know, it just absolutely phenomenal piece of kit. So I do hope you've enjoyed this video and this series of videos. Please do remember to like, comment and subscribe, and I would massively appreciate if anybody did want to join my channel as a member. The button is down at the bottom there. Thank you very much, and I will see you next time. Bye.